been thinking about what does today's prayers mean, right? And the first one that I read, which is from Stan Strong, it pretty much, it says very clearly, Star Shepherd, okay? It just says, lift up your eyes and look at the heavens, who created all these. He who brings out the starry hosts one by one and calls for each of them by name, because of his great power, mighty strength, not one of them is missing. It's just saying, very clearly, keeps saying to us, God is with us. God cares for you. So, he exists. He shows us that every detail that he has is there with us. On the Table with Jesus book, it says on day 12, Jesus is God. Jesus is God with us. It keeps talking about how not just Jesus' arrival on earth showed that God is was as close as he could to us, but he also had done it before. He did it with Abraham, talked with him. He did it with Moses, he did it with, different examples of how God has come really close to humanity, and he's done it with David, with Solomon, with Moses, of course, and his final touching us part, of course, Adam and Eve, was with Jesus, right? And it's just very clear that he is with us all the time, every minute of the day. So as I go in the first one, pretty much it's the same theme of, God is the one that did all this stuff, every star put in their place. He is inside and he's real. God talked to everyone and was very close to us and brought his son here, and he's with us. And then, interesting, as I went to the poems and prayers, it was about memories, right? But it started on page 60, which is, to do it one more means you did it again. To do it, what's never been done, reveals it's always been there, right? So it's never been done, but it's always been to be done, right? And then the other one's about memory. It's unlike her cousin's conscience. There she patiently waits and always cares, judging us not for what or nor avoid, though we may be, she's not annoyed. A graceful poet, she finds us lost and greets us with reflection, and she rhymes us with reminding times so we can make the connection. Just as true, she deja vu and surprises us with chances. She flies and floats from clouds to boats, and with our dreams she dances. Always near, never far, she's teacher, always right behind us, or our shoulder as we greet each day. When we take the time, she's right beside us. Memory never forgets, even though we do, right? So, again, it's been written that God's been with us. It's been shown to us by everything he's created. History talks about it. Yesterday I went to this museum. I struggled because I couldn't find Moses. And I was like, where's Moses? Where's Moses? Where's Moses? Why do I need that? Why would proof am I looking when I look at everything today? I'm looking at, there's proof. He's right there. There's proof. He's right there. So, it was a dumb struggle. And then, I come into the Word of the Bible and I get Corinthians 1, 22 and 20. Corinthians 1, 20 and 21. And it's pretty much where it shows on 20 that, you know, God's always been there with us. You know, in these fights, he had pretty much David take all the descendants of Ravna out, pretty much. So, but war after situation, he did it. And then David turns around and, you know, and goes and requests to count all the people when the army is Lord's army. Why are you counting all these people so you can have a census that tells you how many people can fight and you could be bigger and the biggest fighting force? Or you little David that beat Goliath. You don't need that. You have Lord. You have the Lord with you. So then the Lord punishes him in a sense, and he gives him 3 choices of things to do. And he picked the one that he knew God controlled. And then when God walked around with his angels and saw, God gave him the chance again, because he loves you. He loves us every day. You know, so God is with us all the time, around us. We're in his presence all the time. And Jesus was a representation that he was there from walking this area. So it's a good start. You know, I read the different titles of ministry, elder, bishop, and trying to kind of get understanding more about this. And we're getting ready to start a day. So God bless you. Thank you. Bye.